Well, hey, friends, welcome to the Empowered Homes Podcast. The purpose of this podcast is to help parents win at home with free resources on our website, empoweredhomes.org. Today, we are in the studio. My name is Megan, and I am joined by my pal, Bobby.
Hey, friends.
And we are so excited to invite special guests on the podcast. They were just here at Kingsland for a special marriage conference for our special needs parents. They are Joe and Cindi Ferrini. Welcome.
Thank you so much.
Good to be with you.
Yes, we're so glad to see your faces again. I loved getting to know you just a little bit when you were here with us for our marriage conference. But can you let our listeners know more about you and the wonderful things that you get to do that the Lord has put in your hands too?
Okay, well, Joe is nudging me to go first. So I'll go.
Ladies first.
I'm Cindi Ferrini, and Joe and I have been married for a long time, 47 almost years. And our son, Joey, is 45, who has special needs. We also have two daughters that are, one's in their 40s and one's getting there close. And so our kids are grown. And so from a lot of experience, we speak. We always tell people, you know, if I have to read a book from a special needs parent and their child hasn't yet gone through puberty, it doesn't count.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we have a lot of experience behind us, and we have made a lot of connections along the way with things that we have done. We spoke for Family Life through Crew for over 20 years, and that really kind of got us going with speaking with parents of children with special needs in a different way than we ever expected. So much of our journey of the things that we've done were never things that were on our list to, if you will, accomplish. So we love where the Lord has us. We feel like speaking to couples to encourage them and give them hope on this journey with special needs children. Some people just have one child, some have more. Some have entered into it like we did without any kind of knowing that our son would be special needs and without any education or preparation for it. Others have, made that choice on their own to have a child with special needs and adopt. And so we speak to all of those groups of parents, and we hope that we give them the kind of help and encouragement that they need on this journey.
Yeah, absolutely. Every marriage comes into their relationship with if you will, set of blueprints in their mind, at least kind of these are goals that they set for themselves. These are ideals that they set for themselves. And everyone's blueprint is different. But I can assure you that there was nowhere on our blueprint a special needs child. Mm-hmm. And at that point in time, once a special needs child comes into your life, you can just throw out those blueprints and begin to modify and adjust and correct your journey as needed. The primary goal, of course, of every marriage is to pursue oneness in that marriage relationship. How you do that, how you go about doing that, and the steps needed to do that, pretty much the same across the board. But special needs parents are a unique group of people that basically they have to modify that blueprint. And what we have sadly have learned over the years is that on average, about 85% of the parents who have special needs kids do not modify their blueprint. And they bail out for one reason or another. They didn't sign up for this thing, or however you want to say that. And so our message with the new book that's coming out soon is that, there is a need to make this adjustment, this modification, and we want to help you make that modification to your set of blueprints.
I'm so grateful for your ministry and just your willingness to use your experience to help others. Because I think a lot of times, especially I've been around a lot of special needs parents, but not just special needs, but those who are dealing with cancer or dealing with, sometimes we get isolated. We feel like we're all alone. And for you to say, hey, you're not alone in this. Let me help you and share with you my journey is a powerful tool that God's using you, and we're so grateful. But, let's rewind all the way back to, you talk a little bit about this in the book, and then you talk about this through your seminars, but the journey you didn't choose. So share with us kind of like the start of understanding, like, hey, our family's different now, and give us kind of a glimpse into the first, few years.
It's almost as fresh as if it were yesterday. Some of the things that we recall. Joey was born after a very long labor and delivery through C-section. None of that, though, was any part of what happened to him. When he was in utero, something happened in his development, and his brain did not progress the way it should. And the diagnosis that he has is pachygyria, and the word gyria is like, or pachygyria is like pachyderm. So his brain is a thicker, kind of like if you would think of like an elephant skin, sort of a
the
thicker.
cortex of the brain is thicker.
Is thicker.
So the neurons synapses do not connect as quickly or at all. And so that was what created the problem for Joey.
Right. And so we of course, we did not know that. His head was larger when he was born. And when you look at him now, his head's really big.
Yeah.
But we thought, Joe's head is larger. My dad had a larger head. They need to get larger hats. And so we just thought, Joey's head is just genetically larger. But when he was not doing the milestones like turning over, we would kind of make excuse like his head's just too heavy. He can't really do it. But then when he wasn't doing anything, sitting up, any kind of movement that way, not progressing like others in my circle of friends, we began to recognize, and I think the doctors did too. I think they were being very cautious and maybe even a little reluctant to say anything until they could really give a good diagnosis.
Yeah. You have to keep in mind that the time frame for us is, we said Joey's 45 years old. So about that time frame, 50 years or longer, the medical legal considerations were very pressing on healthcare providers. And so, as Cindi said, that they would hesitate and refuse to jump in and give a diagnosis for Joey's condition for fear of legal ramifications. And epilepsy and cerebral palsy and are two of the manifestations of pachygyria. Cerebral palsy by itself is one of the primary reasons why lawsuits will take place in a medical situation. And we were not interested in bringing about a lawsuit with anybody, but in the back of the mind of the medical professionals that we were dealing with, there was certainly reluctance for them to jump up and say, this is what your child has. And so Cindi, what she did was she went and got an old medical book
from the library.
No
Google.
Yeah, that's right. My background is biology and chemistry, and I did a lot of research, and so I just began to dive in and examine the symptoms that my child had, and then go work backwards to, well, what is this that's causing this problem? And so I remember this very clearly, even now, the time that Cindi and I, we went into our doctor's office, and I said, basically, after my research, this is what I think our son has. He has this, and this. And the doctor says, yes, you're right, that's what he has. And he got up and walked out.
Oh, my goodness.
And that was the extent of the interaction that we had with the doctor at that point, is that he just bailed on us. And, of course, at that point, Cindi and I were just looking at each other, starting to cry. Stunned by shocked by, one, that he would do that, and two, that we were right.
Right.
That is indeed what Joey, his condition, has. And so with pachygyria, you have, things like cerebral palsy, epilepsy, mental retardation or mental decline.
And just to say too, the term mental retardation, when we hear people say retarded, in our day and age, it's such a negative word that has a very negative connotation. But in terms of a diagnosis, it's really quite accurate because it is a slower mental capacity. And so back then, it was still being used, and it's in his records as being mentally retarded.
Right. And so at that point, how old was Joey?
I think it was over a year, probably closer to a year and a half when we started being able to sort of sort these things out, like Joe just mentioned. And then we began to have testing done to get that specific diagnosis. And then there came a time where they wanted to do some additional testing. And we just said, well, based on what you've told us, based on what we see and we're experiencing, can you help him? Can you fix this? And they said no. And then we said there will be no more testing then, because that would be pointless to put him through all that and to put us through all that for maybe just another word to add to the word salad of his diagnosis and in his condition. And so we just said no, we won't do any more testing.
But at that point is when we began to put into place the things that we felt we needed to do to put in place to address the issue. Yeah. And so that began the journey, if you will, of that we've been put on to help us to begin to try to help our son.
Yeah, and we had wonderful connections through different doctors and other people that we would come to know in our circles to get us into like an early intervention for children. And so at our Metro Hospital in the Cleveland area, I would take Joey down there, which was not an easy feat to get into Cleveland, but it was a great hospital for physical therapy, occupational therapy, some speech therapy, but mostly it was learning how to do movements with his mouth, not so much talking. He really just made sounds pretty much through his age 5, 6, 7, and began saying words when he was about 12. And so he has a limited vocabulary, and he definitely gets his point across.
Yeah. So you find yourselves in this place where you, like you said, you may have had this blueprint, and then it's completely changing, right? And so talk us through a little bit about what did it look like? Because, in your book, The Special Needs Parent, you're incredibly honest about the struggles and the victories and what, you were going to face. But at what point did you realize we've got to change some of the things that we're doing as a marital unit and as a family unit in order to be able to walk through this?
Well, I think Cindi was really the first one to really jump on board and begin to engage with the reality of our situation. I was a little bit more reluctant, only because, I want my son to be able to play catch, to play ball with him, to be his coach, and, take him places. And it was beginning to be real clear that I was never going to be able to play catch with my son.
I'll take over for a moment. I think for every parent, there's a desire and a goal for your children. You want them to grow up to be healthy and smart and get to do the things they want to do. And we were realizing Joey wasn't going to get to do much, if any, of those kinds of things. And Joe was very sports-minded in junior high and high school and was good at sports. And so he desired that for Joey. And we brought him home from the hospital in an Ohio State little sleeper, and he had a football over here on one side and a little baseball over here on another side, expecting in the future to have those kinds of moments with Joey. But he does have those moments. They just look different. I don't know how it looks.
Well, that was my expectations, obviously, for my son, was that he was going to, emerge into this as an athlete. And that wasn't going to happen. But what has happened is that Joey has become quite an avid fan of sports. And he has his favorite sports teams. And within a few seconds who those sports teams are. And
you can say those real clear.
Yeah. Those come across real easily. And who his not favorite teams are as well. But that's how I engage with Joey. And one way we manifest that is that we play a lot of PlayStation together, Xbox games, and we've been doing that quite a bit.
And Joe has spent a lot of time. The time he may have spent on a real field with Joey, he has spent helping Joey learn how to play those games, and he is very good at them. And it doesn't require him to run or to move, but he can, do the hand, what do you call them? The game handle things, control. You can tell I don't do these things. In fact, there was a point when Joey really showed interest. I said to Joe, you have to be the one to do this, because you will not have dinner on the table if I have to do this too with Joey. So he really took that to heart and really has spent time with Joey, and he can get to the end of many games that he plays, which is not easy to do. And he has a couple of cousins that he has beat, and it's kind of refreshing when that happens.
My nephews, I have 3 nephews who are both MDs, doctors, and he beats them when it comes to Star Wars or football or baseball games. And
he can. He has beat them.
He has done that, so it's kind of refreshing to see that.
Well, I love how open and honest you guys are about everything, and it comes across in your book. Even in your book, we've talked a little bit about isolation and how easy parents can fall into that. But in the book, you talk super practical about stress, finances, even dealing with unkind people. Give us just don't share too much, because we want our listeners to grab a copy of this book, but give us a little insight onto, you
don't want their name, phone number.
Yeah, no, but give us some insight. Like, what were the key things that you were like, you know what, every special needs parent needs to, especially those maybe that just got home from the hospital like you guys did, that what made it to the list, what didn't make it to the list? Like, what was your heart behind those very practical resources that you put in?
I think probably for us, it was the things that we remember the most or continue to have going on in our life. Like you said, isolation. That is a huge one. And really asking the question too, is God in this? Is God in this? And is he in all that's going on? The finances, the stress, all of the words people say. And I have to say that Joey, because of Joey, we have 2 daughters that are truly lovely young ladies. And I wish we could say, we raised them so great. But I honestly have to say, I think Joey was a big part of it.
Absolutely.
That he has just the Lord has allowed for Joey to be in our life, to not think of ourselves first. I mean, I would say most days we're getting him ready in the morning, brushing his teeth, doing other bathroom things. Those are the kinds of things, even when you're holding that newborn baby that is so beautiful and you love so much, you don't think, well, he's going to be 5 and I'm going to have to still be changing a diaper maybe, or 40 and I'm still going to have to help shower him. You don't think about those things. So as we really thought about the different topics for the book, we wanted for it to be really practical and if you will, raw, because I remember when we were first going through the learning stages, I got a couple of books and they were so vague. It was like, God is good and everything will be fine. And I remember thinking, well, today is not fine. Mm-hmm. Today is not fine. Really, it is not good. And so when we wrote our first book, Unexpected Journey, we had some 250 people contribute to the book to make it raw and real, and then to give hope to people. So to answer your question, to what made the cut for some of these things were the realities of what we deal with, not only at the very beginning, but we continue to deal with over and over in our life, even now. You mentioned unkind words. I don't know what any of us who have special needs children might have been like had we not had them. But those kinds of things that other people say, or looks that they give, or ways that they ignore us or pretend like they don't see us, is pretty hurtful. I don't get mad at people because I wonder what I would have been like. Would I be uncomfortable? And so we try really hard, have always tried hard, to make Joey as welcoming to others as we can. How we dress him, that he's clean, that he's socially presentable. And then also trying to teach him to the best of his ability to eat with good manners. And I'm telling you what, I see some people our age who don't eat with as good of manners as Joey. And I am here to tell you it wasn't easy to do that day after day after day after day until he mastered certain things. So
We're still working on it.
and we're still working on it too, right? Just even our own lives. So, some of the things that we talked about, and I will say when in the book, when we talked about unkind words, I think it's given us a real good flavor for how to treat other people kindly when they have been kind to us, that give a blessing instead of an insult to somebody else, even though when inside you just feel like, boy, I would really like to say something that wouldn't be very Christ-like at this moment. And I think that we have to be real careful. This has become our story. It is our testimony.
Yeah.
And while we're not perfect, we surely want this to be an indication to show others who Jesus is in our lives too.
I think go back to Cindy's comment that we gave 250 books away to people who contributed a comment, a line or two, to our book originally. But where those 250 people came from is that when we would speak around the country at family life conferences, people who had special needs children would come to us and ask us what's available to help us to get through the day, to deal with the situation at hand so that it doesn't affect our marriage, it doesn't affect our family, and so on. And as we looked around, there was nothing available. So at that point in time is when we really we felt led to engage in being a legitimate resource that people could understand and relate to well. And so for us, that was not a real pleasant journey, because that meant that we got to go back and reopen all those scars again that we were trying to cover over and not think about again. But we had to, if we were going to be practical, we had to cut open those scars and expose the hurt that was there when it first happened. And I think that's probably the best thing we could do for people, is help them realize that they're not alone, and that we want to help them to walk through this process because there are nasty people out there. And that's just the reality. I didn't realize how many nasty people there were, or in terms of the things they would do or say to Joey or to us. And but nevertheless, that's just the journey we're on, and we can deal with it pretty well now. I think we do. A good scripture verse passage is that I'm using more and more these days. It's just the whole healing of blind Bartimaeus in scripture. And the one thing, if you look to cross-referencing in the different passages that are in the New Testament, one of the questions that is asked of Jesus is, who sinned? Who caused this to happen? Was it the parents? Was it the child that caused him to be blind? And Jesus' response was, neither of them. Okay, the child was who he is, who he became, so that God might be glorified through it. And so I read that, didn't quite understand what that meant at the time, but now certainly I do. And that is that, through the life of Joey, we have been able to impact many people by just sharing with them, the reality of, you can get through this. You're not alone, and that we're going to be fine, because God can use the situation.
I love that so much. And the book is called The Special Needs Parent. And one of the things at Empowered Homes, yes, we give a ton of free resources away, but we want to get resources in the hands of parents to help them win at home. And, just thinking out loud, those parents with special needs children, this book is incredible. But what would you say to those who don't have a special needs child? Do you recommend this for them as well?
That is such a heartfelt question. And when we wrote our first book, Unexpected Journey, it was kind of like a manual. And we said to people, we would love it if you would take this book and give it to the grandparents of the child with special needs, or the aunt or the uncle. I have a sister who had for many years helped take care of Joey when we would speak, when we would go out of town. Now our girls do a lot more of that. But, even family members sometimes will say things and you think, oh my goodness, I can't believe that came out of your mouth.
Mm-hmm.
So we have recommended to people to give it to friends and say, we just want you to, it's not this particular book, The Special Needs Parent, A Guide to the Life You Never Expected, is really a book that would be great because it shows to another person, maybe an aunt, an uncle, a friend, or a neighbor. It's not a hugely long book that you can't read it in a decent amount of time, but it gives information, and they might be able to read that book and say, this is what they're going through. We had been asked one time at a previous church that we attended just to share our story in about 15 minutes. And after we did, we had a number of people come up to us and say, we had no idea like what your life is like.
Mm.
And part of me wanted to say it's because you've never asked.
Mm.
You've never come to invest in me. And you can't invest in everybody. We don't invest in everybody. And so we're not mad at anybody, but it was a good reminder to us that, unless somebody really enters into the life of another person, whether it's because they're divorcing or because they have a wayward child or because they have a special needs child, unless we really dig into their lives and take a few minutes to be with them and ask them questions and maybe see how we can serve them, we won't know. Mm. And so that would be, I think if somebody else would read that book, it would be wonderful.
Yeah.
Just a little story. When we were speaking at Family Life one time, there was a group of young couples, maybe 6 couples, would you say?
Something like that, yeah.
And they came up to us and said, we have a friend that sounds almost exactly like Joey. We wish they could come to one of these. And I said, oh, they could come. They could come. And they said, well, he needs so much help. I said, you 12 people could do it. You 12 could do what the 2 of them do in a weekend.
Yeah.
And you could make it sort of a party. Go to their house and just, you guys play games, engage the child, just enjoy the company that you have of your friends and let your friends get away for a weekend because they will trust you. If they're your friends, they will trust you. I don't know the end to that story, but it was an encouragement, hopefully, to them that unless you step out and do something, they're just going to be at home this weekend while you're having a great time enriching your marriage. And they're at home still probably maybe on a 20-year-old changing a diaper. And you can do it. You just have to be willing.
Yeah. And a lot of the situations or characteristics that Joey has now at 45, he had when he was 12 or whatever. But what? Cindy's father had Alzheimer's. My mother had vascular dementia. And the same patterns that we see in Joey are the same patterns we saw in their lives as well. So can this book be used by other people? It sure can.
Yeah.
When you look at parents or older people with these conditions, and you're trying to understand them, you're trying to see how you can help them. It's the same way with treating a special needs person, And our first book, Unexpected Journey, as Cindy said, it's like a manual. In fact, some colleges are using that book today to train students who are in master's programs who want to become special needs parents. And that's only teachers, rather. Yeah, not parents, sorry. Teachers. And the reason for that is we take someone from birth to estate planning. And how do you deal with the special needs person? Well, there's a parallel book out there that we used for many, many years called the 36-Hour Day. Okay. It's totally secular, written by a physician and a nurse. And what they did was they captured the journey of someone with advanced vascular dementia, Alzheimer's. And, and you could jump in on that book. It's a pretty intimidating book, but you could jump in at that book at whatever stage you are at in your
whatever needs you have,
whatever needs you might have, and just begin to follow the program or what they've laid out there. But that's one of the things we try to do in our book as well, is make it so practical that people can begin to identify where they are at right now in their journey, and then take it to the next.
And then where can they go next? And let me just say about that book also that we read that book each time when we had the parents that were going through those illnesses, but it also helped us with Joey because, even though the diagnoses are very different, they're all brain related, and so many brain related diseases or situations or traumas manifest themselves very similarly. And so it was a very helpful book. And just to also, we'll just add one other book that we wrote. It's called Love All Ways, ALL Ways, Love All Ways. And it really helps the couple go through their marriage vows, whether they're caring for each other. Like someday one of us will have to care for each other, And so we wanted to talk about how do you maintain your marriage as you're caring for a child or maybe a parent or your spouse going through the difficult challenges that you have. How do you maintain your marriage and strengthen your marriage during that time?
Yeah.
So,
people tend to sweep these things under the rug, like, oh, it's never going to happen to me. And then this is, I don't have to worry about these issues. But if you're just even a good friend, you would want to pick up that book to see how you might be able to help your friend get through their day.
Yeah. Well, Joe and Cindi, you blessed us today on the podcast. We're so grateful for just your story, your testimony of God's faithfulness, and just your resilience and trusting Him through all things. And you put all this into the book. And again, those of you listening, the book's called The Special Needs Parent. You can access this book anywhere, Amazon, all the popular book places. If someone wanted to reach out directly to you guys, you got a website or a place we can point people to?
Right. Yes, either CindiFerrini.com, Cindi with an I, or JoeFerrini.com. Either one of our names will get you to our website. And we just want to thank you. You have had excellent, heartfelt questions, and I think anyone who will listen to this, they will be touched. They will read between the words that we've spoken and recognize there's something for them.
Well, thank you guys so much. Those again listening, we've got a ton of just awesome resources. We also have our Grace in the Chaos podcast for special needs parents, and we have a ton of special needs resources on Empowered Homes. It keeps getting more and more.
Yeah, we'll link that in the show notes.
We'll link that in the show notes, and as always, you can find all of those resources at empoweredhomes.org.